I tend to feel that the mistake is the bulletproof mindset that all of those bad things happen to someone else. They're not going to happen to my business. They're not going to happen to my building. We go to work on crews most every day thinking nothing's going to happen. It's all going to be wonderful. Business insurance normally will not break you. Everybody has it. So I think it's a very prudent to trade a little bit of dollars today for the chance that the bad thing happens to you.
The following is brought to you by Thryv, the end-to-end client experience platform that helps you get the job, manage the job, and get credit.
Welcome to Winning on Main Street. I'm Gordon Henry, and this week we have a terrific guest who can help you run your business better by making the right choices in an area that most of us don't think about every day: insurance. Yes, insurance. It may seem boring and simple, but it's not. And in our 30 or so minutes together, we're going to hear why from Doug Groves, who runs Program Insurance Group, a national insurance company he runs out of Texas. Welcome, Doug.
Good afternoon, Gordon. Everything wondering in your world?
Everything's good. Great to have you. So, Doug, we're excited to talk about the insurance business. First of all, just tell us, what do you do and who are your typical clients?
Well, Gordon, we're the boring insurance guys that nobody wants to talk to till it freezes for a week, and then all the pipes break, and then they go, I probably need to talk to my insurance guy. And then down in Texas, that was our last week's experience. We had some extremely cold weather here. We're independent insurance guys. Everybody's got their own little game. Our game is business insurance across the country from California to New York. In other words, we're licensed in all 50 states. So we can match a customer up with a carrier in those 50 states. But we sell business insurance and protect small businesses. Our typical customers are less than 50 employees probably. And although we always sell the same products, general liability and property insurance and work comp, just the number of zeros change as you go up the scale of number of employees. But that's who we work with. So our typical customer is going to be a small business owner in their particular state. And they're trying to carve out a living in what they do. And we try to protect them and keep them from getting into litigation or from the weather. The weather is bad now.
Yeah. That's great. So what products or services do you have that are tailored to small or medium-sized businesses? What are the specific products that are most in need for those types of businesses?
Well, the specific products that we sell day in, day out, property insurance like for buildings and contents, business interruption insurance if that building burns and somebody's out of that building for a period of time. Their revenue stream has to be replaced, and insurance will replace that revenue stream for a period of time until they can get going and get their sales or their revenue generation back up for property insurance. And then liability insurance, the things that people don't like to talk about when somebody sues you, they feel like they've been wronged out of your business pursuit. The attorneys seem to grab a hold of them and they would like to sue you and they want some damages. So general liability is a big thing that people often don't understand. They don't understand why somebody's suing them, but so you have to be defended, and that's what general liability will do. And then we have workers' compensation and auto and umbrellas and types of policies that 20 years ago we didn't seem to have ever sold them. We didn't ever know. I didn't know what they were 20 years ago. And those are the employment practices liability insurance where somebody feels like they have been wronged. They not physically injured, but they were mentally injured by being in your contact. Either you abuse them somehow, sexually, age, color, and they attain an attorney and they want to call you to task on that. And so those coverages today are way more important than they were 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Well,
And
let's break these down a little bit. You covered a lot of territory there. So real quick, first of all, the weather. You mentioned, you're in Texas. We all heard last week was, a devastating storm for a lot of people, super cold. A lot of people lost power. If you were a business and you lost power and you lost, the other utilities, and that did something bad to your business, maybe you had something growing there, or, you couldn't do business, would the business insurance have paid for your losses for that time period?
yes, I'm dealing with probably 3 or 4 major league water losses now where pipes froze that aren't supposed to freeze, but it's not supposed to be 0 for a week. But it did freeze, and people were out of their offices, and power was off, and the water lines froze. And then as it warms, power comes back on, and the heat comes back on, or the temperature warms back up. We now have flooded buildings. It's exasperated because people weren't at work or weren't at home, and water lines bust, and then they flood, and then they cause mold, and they wet carpet, and so all that has to be replaced. And the insurance job is to bring a customer back to whole prior to the freeze. And there's replacement cost insurance, and there's actual cash value insurance, and it goes a lot deeper with that. But essentially, that is a classic example of what property insurance, what your bank, if they have a lien on your property, requires you to carry. Property insurance. Now you have a deductible and you have other issues, but across the board, most people, I think, understand weather-related losses are really what insurance was designed for.
Right.
So,
Right.
Since then.
Right. Now, you mentioned also the harassment type issues, which you said weren't as commonplace maybe 20 years ago as they are today. So what do you call that? What is that type of insurance called, and what does it protect you against?
Well, that type of insurance is called employment practices liability insurance, which is a lot of people get that mixed up with workers' compensation insurance. The workers' compensation insurance pays for the physical injury of an employee while they got hurt on the job. This is not a physical injury coverage. It is they have been wronged. They have been abused. They have been fired, and they shouldn't have been fired. They have been,
harassed. Yeah.
Sexually, age,
Right.
Color discrimination,
Right.
and all those are lumped under what they call now employment practices liability insurance. Things that we did not see 30 years ago when I got into the business. Today, quite frankly, I know I'm kind of somewhat kidding when I say this, but I long just to have a regular fire loss. I mean, a fire loss is, I know the tube of boards got burned up. I know how much the tube of boards are and the roof members are. Those are easy claims to handle. Employment practices liability losses are not easy to handle. They're messy. It's not a deal like a 2x4 costs $2.24 a square foot, and I know exactly how many.
Yep.
That's not in dispute.
Yeah.
These are claims that are messy.
Yeah.
Expensive. And attorneys to defend you and win is very expensive.
Right. Understand that. So, Doug, what are the mistakes that small businesses make when it comes to insurance? You described all these things that I need as a small business owner, all these insurances in order to protect myself. What's the mistake they make regarding insurance?
Gordon, I tend to feel that the mistake is the bulletproof mindset that all of those bad things happen to someone else. They're not going to happen to my business. They're not going to happen to my building. They're not going to happen. Liability, employment practices, liability insurance is not going to happen because I'm in control of my business. But are you really? Do you ever leave the office? Do you know what your employees are doing when you're not there? Do you know what they do on business trips? Do you know? I mean, the list is endless, and the areas of concern is endless as well. I think pretty much nowadays, if you have an employee or multiple employees, you have employment practices liability insurance exposures, and we have to take care of it. The mistake is underestimating Texas. We can use that. We can use Texas as a deal. We underestimated how cold it can get, how long it can stay, and what could be affected by that. If your power grid goes down, and it doesn't matter what kind of heat you have in your building, if it goes out for a number of hours, you're going to have broken water pipes. And we go to work on crews most every day thinking nothing's going to happen. It's all going to be wonderful. I have half a gallon of milk in the refrigerator. And when you needed 5 gallons of milk to make it for 7 days, people don't have that. And the same thing happens on insurance, and people underestimate. And in my eyes, this is what I do for a living. So I think it's a very prudent to trade a little bit of dollars today for the chance that the bad thing happens to you. And I've got right now a couple of $100,000 water losses, which is very expensive. I mean, It's in my mind.
Let's talk about the money, because I would imagine, we're all consumers at some level too. I know when you are thinking about insurance as a consumer, you're often thinking, well, how much do I really need to spend to do this? Do I need this? Do I need that? And probably small business people do the same. Is the issue, does it just come down to dollars and cents? And what is a typical sort of prudent level of expenditure on insurance? I think you and I spoke once before. Is it 1% of sales, 2% of sales? What do you think?
Well, I'm a believer of being able to discuss with a customer about ranges, about what it's going to cost if you're in a printing business versus being in the home building business versus being a subcontractor. So, I mean, I think people always want to know what it costs. I will tell you that business insurance will not break you. If you're running a prudent business, it's an expense level that every business has. People that don't have insurance typically don't stay in business. So you can't point to somebody who doesn't carry insurance and they survive and they thrive. So business insurance normally will not break you. Everybody has it, the liability exposures. I mean, typically if you're paying 1% to 2% of your gross sales for insurance, I think you're being adequately charged for the risk. That there are some businesses that have to pay way more than that. The dynamite manufacturer, they may have to pay a lot of insurance. But typical, you deal with a CPA. I deal with a restaurant. I deal with haircutting operations. Those are going to be less. They're going to be nominal to their gross sales.
Right.
Insurance is not based on gross sales, so that as soon as we say that, we've kind of already created a false impression because that's not the way insurance is based.
Right.
But people do like to have an idea of what they're going to spend, and I think
they're looking at their normalized P&L and they're saying, employees cost me X percent, and cost of goods is X percent. Insurance is some item there.
Deal with national carriers like Hartford or Travelers or Safeco. I don't want to put the light on anybody for good or for bad, but typically they're going to be priced comparably. 10% in the insurance business is a big number. If somebody is 30% less in the product comparison, we've probably got an error. That somebody's doing something that the other people aren't doing. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying if you have a 30% difference in quotes, you're probably going to find that somebody has done something not correct.
Right. So it's a highly competitive business, and pricing is very comparable between the leading players.
Very comparable. Now, in commercial lines, we have a lot more rate freedom than they do in personal lines, homeowners and automobile insurance. We have commercial lines rate freedom. The states allow you to move your rate needle based on competition, not based on what the state says you should charge. But that still holds. If Travelers is 30% less than Hartford, that's going to be uncovered pretty quickly, and
Right.
that will last. So.
Right. Hey, Doug, you were talking about the weather as one example of something unexpected. COVID was unexpected, and yet it's hit a lot of businesses very hard. Obviously, the restaurants, the retailers, many of these in-person kinds of businesses. Would insurance have protected a business against COVID?
Well, I wrote quite a few articles last March and April and May about pandemics that I've never dealt with. But insurance at its core is taking a little bit of money from each to pay for the claims of a few. And if you have something that happens to you, that happens to everyone else in the world at the same time, you can pretty well bet it's not going to be covered. Now, it's not intended to be covered. And if we do cover it, you're going to break those insurance companies that get saddled with that. Now, this litigation over COVID is ongoing. It's not over. It's you see things in Europe, you see things in the US. I don't see as much about it today as we did in March, April, and May. Restaurants were extremely hit hard by COVID. Unless you had a drive-through. If you had a drive-through, your business is probably up 20%. But pandemics, typically, that kind of stuff is excluded. And really, if you think about it, insurance at its core, take a little bit of money from each to pay the claims of a few. Mm-hmm. And if one of those few things happens to you, you're probably covered. If something happens to you that happens to every neighbor that you have, in every city and in every state, right, we got a problem.
Right.
That's a simplistic way to deal with insurance. But most business people who are not in the insurance business say, I just want to know what I'm covered for, and I don't want to know what I'm not covered for.
Right.
Typically, I'll go over the not covered for things because that's pretty easy.
Right. Right. Doug, you deal with not just independent small businesses, but franchise. Franchise is a big piece of your business. Tell us about how you cover franchises. Is that different than independent small business? What's the difference?
Well, typically, insurance people are licensed in the state that they operate, maybe a couple little states around them. In our case, maybe a Texas agent is licensed in New Mexico and Oklahoma and Louisiana because they have businesses that kind of ebb back and forth. Typically, a Texas guy is not going to be licensed in California or New York or Florida because his business is not there and the licensing requirements are a little bit difficult. We chose a path to deal with franchises. We like to do things repetitively. So if we find something that we like to do it over and over and over and over again. And so that we can build market share and we can take buying insurance as a group activity for those individual franchisees around the country. So that's our expertise, but it's still small business. In other words, a small restaurant or a haircutting in California that's part of a franchise is just a haircutting store in California. However, instead of him being shopped based on his size of his premium, size still matters, we lump him into the group of his choosing, his franchise group, and we shop them as a group. Right. Now, underlying underwriting issues that some people either fit in the group or don't fit in the group for reasons, each business has, but we like to shop that as a group. So the coverages that we sell to a franchise are exactly the same that we would sell to a non-franchised business. Mm-hmm. It's the same 5 or 6 policies: general liability, property insurance, workers' compensation, auto, umbrellas. It's just scaled to be bigger for a bigger business, and it's scaled to be smaller for a smaller business.
So who hires you? Is it the franchisor, at the corporate level, or is it the individual franchisee at the local level?
Typically, I am hired as a preferred vendor for the franchisor. I don't believe in mandatory insurance programs. In other words, we don't work with franchisors that would have a requirement that everybody use me. I think that's a recipe for failure for me and for the franchisee as well. But we want to be a preferred vendor in the system. We want to gain 30 to 50% market share in that system. And then we take that market share and shop that whole block of business at the same time. So that's our method for doing business. But we are selling the same products, whether that buyer is a franchise system or if he's not a franchise system. And it's just the way that I chose to do business. Not everybody does business the same way. I like groups, and franchises just are the best group business deal you could ever find.
Got it. Okay. And just speaking about your program insurance company, your business, how much of your business is franchised today versus independent?
Our regular walk around, just people walk in the door, buy insurance from us, is probably down to 30% of our business. The rest of it's franchise business from California to New York.
Talking about your business, Doug, is it a family business? I know I was looking at your masthead and I saw a few different Groveses there. Is it a family business? You brought your family into it?
Yeah, we have. I actually worked for my father years ago and kind of actually got out of the business and then figured out I didn't really know anything else to do. So I got back into the business, and then all my children came. I had one was in the real estate business, one was actually in the restaurant business, and one was a CPA. And they all said, "Hey, we like what you do. Let's see if we can figure this out." So it gives us a lot of expertise in different businesses, real estate, restaurants, and CPAs. And I've got 35 years insurance experience, and we always have liked the insurance business. It's been very good for our family, and we have a couple of offices, so we don't all see each other every day, but we don't all sell to the same type of customers. So we kind of move business around and say, well, this guy is in more doing this. Obviously, my son likes restaurant exposures. He was in the restaurant business. The things that he deals with, he was actually a franchise restaurant business. So the things that he deals with as a franchise, he dealt with them himself. And so we I think that we have a feel for that business. And then my lovely daughter was a CPA and worked for some of the big 8 companies. And she brings a different level of experience and to us. And we seem to all get along so far. So it's been a fun ride.
That's great to hear. Happy to hear you're able to do that. So you've been doing this for 35 years, and obviously you like it, but you find time to do some other things. Let's hear a little bit about what you do for enjoyment. What do you do with your spare time? I saw on your website it says you're an avid outdoorsman in Texas. I'm guessing, was that hunting, or what do you do?
I'm not talented at anything outdoors. So actually, I think my fun thing is cutting firewood.
Okay.
I'm not any good at hunting or fishing, but I enjoy it. I mean, it's not something, I don't think I could ever retire because I can't do anything every day. That goes for golf or hunting or fishing. I enjoy all those things in moderation. I think I enjoy working probably more than anything. And my wife and I have been married 39 years, I think. And I think she enjoys me working.
I got it.
I think I'm where I'm at. And I think I'm not going to go very far. I like to travel. The franchise business gives me the ability to travel around the country, see different things, visit with the different agents, see how they're doing and see what's happening in the world. And we come back home and we try to craft up some delivery on the same old products, some delivery wrinkles that help our team.
Got it. Your office is or your home base is Texas. Do you have offices around the country too, or when you have a remote customer, you go see them? You get on a plane?
Yeah, we like to travel. And pre-COVID,
Right.
We came to the office, and then we traveled around the country, either not really in groups, but some of us were on the road all the time, visiting with customers. COVID has taught us how to work from home, how to be probably more efficient than we were pre-COVID. I think we have learned a lot of things about how to do work without being being socially distanced, I guess. I'll try to use the right words. But I think camaraderie is what fellow workers miss. And I think when COVID's over, our business, our insurance business, which can be done on a computer and doesn't need to be hand delivered anymore, the tools have changed so much in my 35 years of experience. I think we'll still do work from home. I think we'll get together and visit and share stories and war stories and opportunities, and then we'll go back home and go to work. And I think that's what's happening in our office. And, the employees rotate in and out of here so that we have somebody here to visit with a customer if they come by. But when you're doing business in California and New York, they're not going to come to the insurance office. So it's just the world has changed.
Yeah.
I'm old. I'm trying to change as fast as I possibly can. I'm behind, but my kids are better at it. And young people have an open mind that my parents, the way that I was raised, was not even thought about. I mean, here we're doing a Zoom call, and
right, a lot of change. Yeah,
you're outside of New York, and I'm in Texas. So
yeah. Absolutely. Just a few minutes left, Doug. I'm interested if you consume information, books or podcasts, or maybe even TV shows or movies. Is there anything in particular that you are listening to or reading that you're really loving right now that you might want to share with the folks?
I like podcasts. I like try to stay away from the news, the daily news deals, just because it always has a slant, I think, that I probably notice now more than I used to. But I actually read a book there's a guy out of Utah named Garrett Gunderson. He's kind of a different financial guy. He wrote a book. I'm not recommending Garrett Gunderson for anything in the world, but he wrote a book that was pretty good, and it's for sale. It's called Killing Sacred Cows. And it's not about the four-legged cows. It's about challenging ideas that you were taught, that you believed in, that somebody told you when you were in college or you grew up with as a child, and you said, well, this is the way it is, and there's no other opportunity. Garrett wrote a book about killing sacred cows, and it's pretty entertaining, and it makes you think, it makes you laugh, and you say, well, why do we do it like that? Or I enjoyed it, and I read it, and I bought copies for all my employees. I'm sure Garrett likes to sell books. But I keep going back to that book because there's chapters on insurance, there's chapters on savings, there's chapters on investing, there's chapters on everything. And it's like, read this. And you asked me a question about this the other day, read this chapter and see what you think. And people go,
yeah, I'm gonna get that book. Sounds interesting. Sounds thought-provoking. I like that. I appreciate that recommendation. Last question for you, Doug. You're a successful person. You've had a great career. It sounds like you've raised a nice family. You've got a great office full of employees and family members. Is there any particular habit or trait that you think has contributed to your success, the way just your lifestyle, the way you approach things?
No, I think it's amazing how lucky you get if you work hard. And I think if you lean on that simple little advice, if you get up in the morning and you go to work, try to solve people's problems. We try to give away as much information as we possibly can. We don't want to charge for the information, and if we are bearers of information that would help a business, then we're going to give you the information. We don't care whether you're doing business with us or not. We know that when that time comes up, if you think of us, Program Insurance Group, because we gave you an article, we helped you out on a thought process, that maybe when the insurance comes up for renewal, you'll give us a call and say, hey, we'd like a quote. I'll tell you, we're not going to ever cut your insurance bill in half. Or maybe we do. You really should have moved a long time ago. But, there's a lot of people in the insurance business. A lot of business is well written. But I think the service level that we can give and the thought that we put into things will help a customer in the long run. And that's what we're trying to do. Bring some value to the table other than the days that we're getting paid. And what are we doing for you as a business owner in the second month, in the third month, in the fourth month of your policies that people get mad because, well, I only saw my insurance guy when my policy is renewed. Well,
Right.
I don't. In fact, if we have a problem, the last day I want to come see you is the day your policy renews. Let's get that done, and then we'll deal with your problem.
Got it. Yep.
We should deal with that in the 6th month, in the 7th month, in the 8th month.
Right. That's great advice, and it sounds like a great way to run a business and approach your customers, and I'm sure that contributes a lot to your success. Well, we're out of time. Doug, you've been a great guest, and I really appreciate your time, and glad you were able to be with us today.
Gordon, it's very nice. Very nice to meet you and your team, and your lady D out of Dallas. Got a big kick out of her, and we're glad to do it, and we would help anybody. We have one, and you can find us.
All right. Thank you so much. That's Doug Groves, Program Insurance Group. And if you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe and tell a friend or a colleague to subscribe and leave us a 5-star review. We'd really appreciate it. And until next time, make it a great week.